I'd love to get into some of the different risks here of this technology and regulatory approaches to them. Maybe we'll start with the most dramatic, which I guess is the species level extinction threat. Our colleague Logan had Eliezer Yudkowsky on his podcast. I think there's obviously an increasing set of folks that think this could mean the end for humanity. I don't know. What are your personal beliefs on that? And maybe we'll start there.
Yeah, on the existential risk, which people sometimes refer to as X risk front, it's these are they're real risks. I think they're not. Sometimes we feel tempted. It's reassuring to say, well, that sounds like science fiction, so it's probably as unrealistic as science fiction. There's a ton of uncertainty around these things because it's impossible to predict the future of any transformative technology. But these things are certainly not impossible. Like, there are very plausible scenarios that cause tremendous harm, up to and including, it sounds crazy, but yeah, like killing all humans. Like, this isn't a complete, a totally deluded fantasy. Like, this is the kind of thing that could actually happen. In terms of Eliezer's claims directly, I think, and I should say he's a very prolific writer, and I haven't read anywhere close to the totality of everything that he's put out or all of the interviews that he's given. And he's very smart. So, there are probably loads of things that he has taken into account that I'm unaware of. But I would say that for a few sort of slightly in the weeds reasons, I'm maybe a little bit less fatalistic than I think he is at the moment, mainly having to do with the sort of progress on the safety front, as well as the research direction that ML stuff has gone in recent years. I think it's like a direction that, for various reasons, is slightly more likely to produce sort of like aligned systems, where aligned in this case I'm sort of fuzzily using to mean systems that will obey the intent of a user that is interacting with them. So I don't think it's like a sort of foregone conclusion that we're all totally screwed, I guess, which is good. Like, I think that the median outcome is actually like very, very good. But even if you have a tiny probability of something terrible happening, you should take it incredibly seriously, and that's what animates a lot of work in the X risk space. So yeah, it's a very real thing. There are lots of serious unresolved safety questions. I don't think I'm as pessimistic as Yudkowsky, but it's totally possible that that this ends up destroying humanity. And even short of that, there's like loads of other types of harm it can do. So we shouldn't like focus solely on that.
Totally.
I'll just mention one other category. So people usually distinguish between alignment failures and malicious use. And they're related, but they sort of require different, like mitigating them requires different tools. So like on the alignment failure side, the typical like worst case scenario there is that, as you know, is that like you tell a system to do something that's actually kind of innocuous, and it interprets that in some fundamentalist way, and in service of what it thinks is the goal, it does something horrific, like kill everyone. The classic example is you tell a system to make a bunch of paper clips, and so it just tries to kill everyone because humans could be a threat to paperclip production, and then it tries to appropriate all matter in the known universe to create paper clips, and in 10 trillion years aliens come and the Milky Way is just like a huge cluster of paper clips. So if you want to address those issues, then you want to invest in technical safety research, and maybe if you don't think that you can get systems to be safe enough, then you want to consider like a ban on building models above a certain level of sophistication. The second category, malicious use, is when the systems do what you want them to do, but they're being used by someone who wants to use them to do something very, very bad, like kill loads of people. And so the mitigation measures for that stuff are a little bit different. They're less about never building sophisticated things, and they're more about making sure that organizations and individuals who might want to use these capabilities to cause harm don't come into possession of or gain access to the most sophisticated models. And so that you can imagine, there are export controls and licensing regimes and all kinds of stuff there that is a little bit lighter touch than the things that you would use if you were worried that systems couldn't be aligned full stop.
Yeah. Is there any feasible way to do that, though? I mean, it feels like, at least in the current moment, these open source models catch up to whatever state of the art, like, pretty quickly. And obviously it becomes quite difficult to, regulate or kind of control the usage of some of that stuff.
There are huge coordination challenges. I think right now it's very, very difficult to think about, if you wanted to just like press stop on all AI development, it would be prohibitively difficult because you do have these competitive dynamics. You could imagine a future world where this is feasible, mainly because the research costs do tend to be pretty significant. And to some extent, the success of some of these open source projects has been in part thanks to projects at big companies being released in some form. So papers being published, maybe some code being released, maybe some smaller models being shared, maybe some of the training data or the logits being shared. And that enables sort of piggybacking on some of those capabilities, or at least the underlying research insights to produce new systems. You could imagine a future where that becomes more locked down for some combination of security reasons and profit incentives, and these companies don't share as much stuff. I think that then we would expect there to be more of a lag between what you see at the sort of big, very, very well-funded labs and the open source community. But yes, there are still huge coordination challenges, both between companies and also between countries. So even if something that people often bring up is, well, even if the US enacted something, and even if its allies got on board with this, and all of these labs agreed to, let's say every lab that attended the recent White House summit, if the heads of all those labs agreed to some set of restraints, then China would just pull ahead. And so that's one argument that people use. I think it kind of makes sense, but I'm kind of skeptical of it. So yes, there are major coordination challenges.